All right. Hello. What's up? Yeah, this is Mike Kuno. Said in the last video I'll probably be playing it again just because I kind of miss it. Um, I already much got frustrated with it right off the bat. But I thought I'd do a video basically on what changes I want to see since they didn't actually buff Succession Kuno in PvE or at all in the most recent Global Labs patches. I can only assume that it's going to come later if it ever does come at all. I don't know. It's hard to tell with the translation. Um, so, but it got me thinking, like, what buffs would I want to see? Like, what do I want to see in this Global Labs patch, right? If I was going to balance Succession Kuno, how would I go about doing it? So let's talk about PvE first. The stamina changes affect PvE. I literally just went to like grind not too long ago, and I was literally running out of stamina, moving pack to pack. It, it's bad. It's really bad. So that's gotta get fixed somehow. Um, some of these ideas will help with that. Um, Revert the tendon cutter changes entirely. Um, Tendon cutter used to cost no stamina and let you regenerate stamina while using the skill. Now it costs 300 stamina and there's no regeneration. Um, that and Flash Slash being used to be able to regenerate stamina basically meant that any of your stamina costs, you would basically your stamina bar would it would go down and then go back up because you're always using Flash and Tendon, right? You do all this stuff and then you go to Tendon Cutter and it would start to come back, and then you go to Flash and it would basically be full again. So those two skills would mostly negate all your stamina costs. And then it was like Shadow Expulsion and Clone and stuff that would recover the rest. But now basically you just don't have anything to recover stamina. Shadow Clone and Explosion just don't last long enough to recover enough stamina. So one of those changes has got to go, and in my opinion, it should be Tendon Cutter. Um, I think one could make an argument that rather than Tendon Cutter, it's Flash that they give the stamina regen back. Um, but personally, I think Tendon Cutter would be better. I think the skill is shorter overall, which means it's less SA, which means you're recovering less stamina in general. So Kuno still have to manage stamina, so to speak. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, let's see. Reduce the cooldown of Flash Slash to 9 seconds. Um, Without it being able to regenerate stamina, there's no real reason that the cooldown is 12 seconds. Um, Other than people don't like the skill, which I can understand. The skill needs to be trackable in some way to the enemy. Like, how is anybody supposed to know that I moved in that direction? That's that simple. It needs to be trackable in some way. Um, so make it trackable, reduce the cooldown down to 9 seconds because we need the skill for PvE, simply put. Um, it's just, with I suppose if they buff damage on other skills, which I'll get into later, that we might not need this to be touched, which would be fine. Um, wouldn't complain, but currently it would certainly help to go back down to 9 seconds. Um, Remove the PvE stiff on tendon cutter. So basically, during the reworks, they added that we can use to pull mobs. However, when you need to do it more than once, it really just doesn't feel good to do. So basically, everyone just started doing tendon cutter through the mobs, and then you pulled all of them. However, some mobs do get stunned, which means in certain areas, it doesn't. It's kind of for pulling mobs. Um, that would help. An alternative option would just be to have, rather than jumping and throwing kunai for that, you could just throw kunai. Just boop boop boop. Oh, there I pulled everything. Like most good class, like warrior. They do that ground smash and boom, they pulled everything in a 7 mile radius. you know, I would very much prefer that this have the AoE on it rather than the tendon cutter change. And since the damage and the slow only apply to whoever the actual kunai hits, like this AoE doesn't apply slows or damage, it just pulls mobs. It wouldn't really break anything in PvP or PvP. Yeah, PvP. It would literally change nothing. It would just let us pull. So, um, increase PvE damage in general. While her PvE damage isn't bad, it's not really, it doesn't keep up with the better classes. And I still think it won't even post nerf. Like, it's just not there. Skills to buff would be like Foxclaw. You could give it 100% PvE crit. Shackles, Shadow Clone, Shadow Stomp. You could add PvE crit to Shadow Stomp. You know, uh, that way you wouldn't have to touch like the damage or anything. It would just be PvE crit. It wouldn't change anything but PvE. Wheel of Wrath, the rune release. Not that this necessarily needs more damage. I'm just trying to think of ways to, you get your 3 runes and then you nuke, and then you move on to the next pack. At least that's the idea behind it. And if this had more PvE damage on it, it would nuke harder in PvE, and it would help your grind. Ankle Splitter is a big one, I think, that could, but it's still a 15-second cooldown, so it's just one that doesn't do a whole lot for considering the cooldown and everything. So, you could also just buff Shadow Explosion or Tendon Cutter, fucking even Moonlight. Um, anything and everything really. Just gotta pick the right ones. I'm mostly picking or thinking of skills at least to go with like runes. The exception would be like Ankle Splitter and Shackles, but like Foxclaw, Shadow Stomp, Shadow Clone, Explosion, Tendon Cutter, Wrath. Right, those are all for the whole rune system skills. Because basically right now the whole idea behind PvE on Kuno, Succ Kuno, is you pull the mobs, you do a pre-buff or pre-buff and a debuff. So like pre-buff and debuff with Tendon Cutter. I have attack speed and DP down. And then I have the same thing on Flash Slash. Another would be like, full buffs with Moonlight, right? Things like that. So you could tendon through the mobs, hit them with Moonlight, and then, stomp, clone, explosion, wrath, and then move on. Essentially, that's the kind of the basic idea behind it. So that's pretty much it for PvE. I'm gonna move on to PvP. Flash Slash, again, I already talked about it a little bit. The same reasons I want the cooldown changed that for PvE also sort of apply to PvP, right? But I would also remove the second teleport. Remove it. This would mean that the skill actually has a little bit of counterplay to it, right? Because even if you can track where they're going to land, it's still fairly quick by the time you jump up in the air and you come down. It's fast. Removing the teleport on the second teleport would mean that the Kuno has to make the choice to either cancel or go for the damage and risk getting grabbed or taking damage, debuffs, whatever. So it just means a little more counterplay for this, dealing with the skill. Add a linger. Kuno has 0 lingers in the entire kit. I guess you could count block jump, right? That's a linger, I guess. What's maybe smoke screen but it's so short I would not even try to call it a linger. I think Shadow Explosion lasts longer than smoke screen, honestly. Yeah, we just don't really have any lingers, not in the same way like a striker does. Or literally any other class in the game has like 1 or 2. Even Awakening can linger Half Moon for 3 seconds. You could add a linger to Explosion, Clone, or Dance. Dance used to have a linger on it. They removed it This was when Successions first came out. I very much would like that back personally, but honestly, for the purposes of like recovering stamina, which is the idea behind adding a linger, um, I'm not sure it'll make sense on dance because dance costs stamina. You know what I mean? So it probably makes more sense to add it on clone or explosion. Um, it'd be really weird to have a skill that costs stamina and then regenerates stamina. So, um, lingers are basically the go-to to balance high mobility with high stamina costs because it means you have to stop and you have to stop for a little bit to recover some stamina, right? And that means you're vulnerable to grabs, to damage, debuffs, whatever it might be. Um, that's one of the reasons why it's like Succession Ninja is so strong. Is while they don't have a forward guard, they have a ton of lingers to not only deal with stamina, but to also deal with the lack of forward guard. And when their stamina gets low, they have a lot of lingers that all last a very long time. Um, sorry, my mouth is dry when I talk a lot. Um, Another change would be to revert the S block changes during the rework. It used to be when you S blocked on a Kuno and you took a hit, you would just continue to S block like this, and your block would go down. There wouldn't be any animations or nothing, right? So you wouldn't get forced into Q block and then start burning through your stamina for no fucking reason. Um, if they don't want to do that for whatever reason, which I very much would disagree with regardless, but if they really, really, absolutely just refuse, they think it's too strong or whatever, fine. Change our Q block to not consume stamina. It is the only block in the entire game that actually consumes stamina while you do nothing but apply forward guard. It's the only one. Um, I don't know why it's still a thing. Honestly, I've talked about it with many people, and nobody can like. Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. It's stupid. I didn't. A lot of people don't even know that it exists. They're like, wait, what? Your Q block costs stamina? Um, Skills that could still use a rework. Um, if for whatever reason they don't want to change any of the other skills, wrong button. This skill still exists for whatever reason, and they could literally just remove it and replace it with something else to help balance the class. Whatever the class might need, a linger, um, whatever, a PvE skill, whatever you want. But currently, the skill is basically worthless and unusable. Um, it's this has got to be one of the most useless skills in the game. Yeah. The other would be Kunai Stab. Kunai Stab did get buffed, so to speak, during the rework. They increased the animation of it. That little extra stab used to be a little bit slower. However, 1057 times 2, that also has a stiffness on it, no modifiers besides counterattack, no crit rate, and a minus 55.6% in PvP is so bad in terms of damage that this skill is worthless. The time it takes to use the skill, even with the attack speed increase, is not worth it. If this skill was instantaneous, then it might be worth it. But as it is right now, they could just remove it and give us something actually worth using. Again, for the same reasons, to help us with PvE, managing stamina, whatever the class might need. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think Succession Kuno needs a whole lot, right? I mean, we saw how good it was before it got nerfed. It was very, very good. Um, I still don't think it was one of the best classes. and it got nerfed anyway, although those other classes didn't. But it always hurts to see, you know, but that's the way it goes. Um, and I know they only talked about PvE, but they did say PvE only, and they went and buffed Awakening, Kuno's Spin Spree, and other stuff anyway. So I'm hoping that even though they say they're talking about PvE, they might go ahead and do some PvP buffs. Anyway, those are just my ideas on like how I would go about fixing Kuno. Um, I That's pretty much it. I don't think I have anything else to add. I want the class to be, playable again. Right now, it just doesn't feel like it. You run out of stamina so quickly, right? I mean, I just burned half my stamina, right? That's it. There's half of it just gone. It's so like easy to burn your stamina, and you just have no way of getting it back. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any other ideas, I would love to hear them. I like talking about this stuff. And I would love to hear, non-Kuno players' opinions, because I know talking to some other people that Kuno's a very difficult class to deal with because it's so hard to track. I'm still of the opinion that like it's both Kuno and Ninja shouldn't go invisible when they do skills like Ghost Step or Tendon Cutter, you know? Um, there's no reason for that. It just means the class is very difficult to track and hard to deal with and annoying. Um, so yeah. Tell me what you think. I would love to hear it. Yeah. I'm on vacation, so I might put out a few extra videos here and there. Um, since I have some free time. Uh, yeah. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day or night or whatever.